Hello, and welcome to your new favorite bookish podcast, Fully Booked and Caffeinated. I'm Heather,
And I'm Kelsey.
and on today's episode, our very first episode, it'll be about the New York Times bestseller and phenomenon, Verity, by the Queen, Colleen Hoover. Before we get into the book, let's talk about the most important thing that keeps us going, coffee. Today, I went to Starbucks, and unfortunately, they were sold out of my favorite holiday flavors. So I had to go back to my classic. So I got a cold brew. I add in some white mocha syrup because that is the superior syrup. And I add some vanilla sweet cream cold foam on top. So that'll really get me going here. What about you, Kels?
Wow, I'm just so jealous of how delicious that sounds. I have a Profi, if you will. It's 3 shots of espresso and a coffee flavored protein shake because we're off to a rough start this morning. But here we go. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. That still sounds delicious. I know like Profi is really has been taken over. People really love that. Get your protein in with your coffee, so
Almost
a
as
little bit
much
healthy.
as Coho.
Right? All right, so let's dive into the biography of Colleen Hoover. So, she is a number one New York Times best-selling author she's written 22 novels and novellas. Her novels fall into the new adult and young adult contemporary romance categories, as well as psychological thriller, hence the book we're talking about today. She's published by Montlake Romance, Grand Central Publishing, and Atria Books. She also has several indie titles, including Heartbones, which is a book that I've seen people post about on Bookstagram a lot. So it's on my list of books to buy of hers. I hear really good things about it. She has won multiple Goodreads awards. In 2015, her novel Confess won the Goodreads Choice Award for Best Romance. That was followed up in 2016 with her latest title, It Ends With Us, also winning the Choice Award for Best Romance. In 2017, her title Without Merit won Best Romance. So clearly, she's loved by Goodreads.
Yes.
Goodreads loves Colleen Hoover. They're like, you wrote a book? Guess what? It's nominated. It's
Yeah.
probably going to win.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if it's good at this point. It's happening.
More or less, that's what's going to happen. So something that I didn't know about Colleen was that she founded something called the Bookworm Box, which is a charity subscription service and bookstore. And she did that with her family in 2015. The Bookworm Box is a subscription service that provides readers with an exciting opportunity to receive signed novels in the mail each month from authors all over the world. So it's not even just hers, it's like all these authors.
That's awesome.
I know, but it gets better. All profits from the subscription service are donated to various charities each month.
Oh, and she started
So,
this in 2015, you said?
yeah. So Colleen Hoover is just a gem.
And
She
like,
is just a gem.
it's just insane how no one, well, I mean, people know about her, obviously. She was selling books, but like the fact that she's just blown up to this like huge, people are just discovering her now, but she's been doing all of this stuff and winning all these awards for years. That's wild.
I know. And then to date, this subscription service, the Bookworm Box, it's donated over $1 million to help those in need.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Wow, look out. Killing
I
it.
know. She's wild. She's become a huge influence on Book Talk, and Verity was a book that had hundreds of TikTok videos made, focusing heavily on the hashtag team manuscript and hashtag team letter, which we will discuss later on in this episode. So yeah, basically Colleen Hoover just kind of, I would definitely say Book Talk was a heavy influence for her career skyrocketing, and she's just phenomenal. So I'm not surprised that everyone is eating up her work.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. I think like a common misconception is that people go into her books thinking that they're going to get one thing and then they get something else. So I have heard a lot of people saying like, "Oh, she's overrated" or whatever, but I think that those are the people who have a different expectation. Like this was her first thriller book, so it's like, is it a thriller? Is it romance? And then It Ends With Us, which I just recently read. Oh my God, amazing. Is not your typical romance book. And I think that that's why some people would be not necessarily disappointed with it, but like think that it's overrated or think that people, you know what I mean?
I agree. I think her books, every book is different from the other. So far, I've read two of her books, three of her books. I read Verity. I also read It Ends With Us, and I'm currently reading Ugly Love. And I can tell you, between the three of them, they're just different. They have different concepts, different storylines, which obviously, but you can't compare one to the other.
Gotcha.
They're all very different.
Yeah.
So I think her work is very diverse in a way, and she comes up with these storylines that are wild and they're good.
Oh, they're
So,
definitely original. And that's like,
mhm.
especially on like book talk and thriller talk specifically, I feel like sometimes I'm giving points just for originality because there's so many of the same plot done over and over and over again. And hers are definitely original concepts, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a really smart depiction of who she is. All right, let's get into the book. So, the Goodreads description of the book is Loan Ashley is a struggling writer on the brink of financial ruin when she accepts the job offer of a lifetime. Jeremy Crawford, husband of best-selling author Verity Crawford, has hired Loan to complete the remaining books in a successful series his injured wife is unable to finish. Loan arrives at the Crawford home, ready to sort through years of Verity's notes and outlines, hoping to find enough material to get her started. What Loan doesn't expect to uncover in the chaotic office is an unfinished autobiography Verity never intended for anyone to read. Page after page of bone-chilling admissions, including Verity's recollection of what really happened the day her daughter died. Loan decides to keep the manuscript hidden from Jeremy, knowing its contents would devastate the already grieving father. But as Lowen's feelings for Jeremy begin to intensify, she recognizes all the ways she could benefit if he were to read his wife's words. After all, no matter how devoted Jeremy is to his injured wife, a truth this horrifying would make it impossible for him to continue to love her. Right? All right. Story set. All right. The mood.
Mhm.
We know what we're going
That
into.
was pretty spot on. Pretty spot on. All right.
All right. So, Verity is considered to be a romantic thriller, which are two words I wouldn't expect to be placed together,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but we're rolling with it. The themes throughout Verity are pretty dark, with plot lines including child abuse, graphic violence, explicit sexual content. But then you have the romance theme of love and connection for both Lowen and Jeremy, as well as Verity and Jeremy. As you read Verity's manuscript, you get a look into her past with Jeremy and how they fell in love. I also feel like a psychological theme is heavy as you read Verity's manuscript and her narcissistic voice throughout.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any other opinions on the theme of the book plot?
I think there's also this like huge theme that weaves the throughout the whole book of just like the deep sense of loss. And that's how like Lowen and Jeremy even connect in the first place because like Lowen has just lost her mom. And even though they had a rocky relationship, she had to like basically watch her just disappear in front of her eyes. And then Jeremy obviously has lost both of his daughters and kind of his wife because she's so damaged, basically. So that's kind of like how they keep being pulled back together, that they both have this like innate sense of like what loss is.
That's actually a really great point. I didn't even think of that. That loss definitely is so big in this, because like you said, first Jeremy loses one daughter, and then a few months later he loses another daughter, and now all of a sudden his wife is bedridden and catatonic. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's just him and Crew, their younger son. And so I agree with that. I think loss is definitely a prevalent theme throughout this book, and it just keeps going throughout the book too. Like I feel like that's just it's constant. So Lowen's character, let's talk about her a little bit, since she's pretty much one of three main characters in this book. To me, she kind of came off as meek in the beginning and not super likable, and the rushed feeling of her attraction and relationship with Jeremy was predictable. But it necessarily didn't sit right with me at first because you're helping out this family. You're trying to help finish his basically dying wife's book series. And you're like, you know what? The husband's kind of hot.
Yeah.
I might slip on in there and see what I can do, see what I can work with
Yeah.
here. So it was kind of an odd concept of her living in the house with the family, but it obviously helps with that thriller vibe,
Yeah.
you know, with everything when she thinks she sees Verity or things are going missing or things are appearing. And so I understand the whole point of her living in the house for the book's sake, but if this were real life, I highly doubt that would happen.
Yeah,
But
like
who knows?
you're never that desperate because like she keeps blaming it on the fact that like I'm so desperate because I have nowhere to live because I have to wait for this money and I got kicked out of my apartment and blah blah blah. But like honestly, she could have gone and slept on the couch of her agent's house and like even though they had a bad relationship, you had somewhere to stay. You could have found somewhere else to stay.
And also, Jeremy paid her up front.
Yeah.
Girl, go get a hotel room.
Yeah,
Go get a hotel room.
he was like, I'll front you the whole thing. You just pay me back, no problem.
Yeah, just go stay at a nice Holiday Inn or wherever, a Hilton. I don't know where they are, what kind of hotels they have, and you just come and go as you please. Like
Hmm.
he's giving you full access to this house.
Hmm.
Do you need to sleep in their
In
marital
their
bedroom?
bedroom.
With
So
teeth
weird.
marks on the bed. And this girl is like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if my teeth can fit in her teeth on the bed. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, girl, you do you.
I
You do
mean,
you.
like I get that she was just I guess just so horny that that really was the first thought that came into her mind. But like how hot is this man? Like I don't understand how you're willing to just like throw it all up in the air.
I know. Well, don't worry, because at the end of this episode, we'll get into who we would cast in the movie.
Okay.
And if he's as hot as the man that I chose, then you know what?
Yes.
I too would do the things that Lowen did.
Okay, touche, touche.
Yeah, but anyways, so the discovery of the manuscript is the bone-chilling reveal
Hmm.
that stays with you throughout the entirety of the novel. She finds it and it just becomes this, it takes over her life essentially. She actually kind of throws the series out the window, I think, in her own mind, and she's so hell-bent on getting through this manuscript, even though she knows it's wrong to be reading it.
Hmm.
And every so often she's like, no, I can't look at this anymore. And then she's like, you know what though? I gotta read it. I gotta finish it.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, same.
Oh, I know.
Same.
Absolutely.
I would have finished the whole thing in one sitting. Like I have to know.
Hmm. But do you have any thoughts on her that I haven't mentioned?
I think the only other thing is just that she's so, well, you said it, she was meek. I also think that she's naive. Like,
Yeah.
you literally think that someone in this house is pretending to be paralyzed, and you're still just chilling. You're still just
I know.
staying there. Like, she's like, you know what? It's okay because I really want to sleep with this man. No.
Honestly. She's like, you know what? It's cool. I like to be freaked out.
Yeah.
You know.
She's like, the one person I'm scared of in this house is the one who is bedridden and like probably won't hurt me. But like, I'm almost fully convinced that she's pretending. But I'm going to stay. I'm going to wait it out and we'll see if I'm right.
Uh-huh.
We'll just see what happens.
Yeah. That was wild to me. But, clearly she has her own agenda here.
Yeah.
And
But I do agree. I don't think she's likable.
no, and it's especially because so I reread this
Hmm.
because they came out with the bonus chapter, and for some reason I don't remember. I read it 2 years ago for the first time. It was during COVID that I read it, and I think I liked her the first time I read it, but then the second time I read it, I'm like, no, I'm like, wait, this girl's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're really just living in someone else's house, making out with her husband.
Hmm.
And it's just like, okay, maybe you're not that great of a person, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so moving on to Jeremy, he was sus from the beginning. Like their first meeting, which, by the way, let's just talk about that for a second. Lowen, the beginning of this book starts with Lowen just seeing some guy get slammed with a bus,
A
and it's just never
bus.
talked about again.
A whole
Like
ass bus.
she saw someone die
Yeah.
in front of her.
Hmm.
And but maybe, I guess I could understand it because death did just recently happen for her. She has the reek of death on her with her mom.
But also, don't you feel like that kind of makes it worse? I mean, well, it is this whole thing of like, what do they call themselves? The people who tragedy clings to.
You're asking me this
I'm
when I
gonna
haven't finished my coffee.
I'm gonna look it up. But basically, like her mom dies, and then the first time she sets foot out of the house,
Yep.
she sees someone else die. And I'm just like, I would turn right around and go back in the house. What are you doing?
I know. And then she just meets this guy, and this guy's like, "Here's my shirt," which was nice. It was
Hmm.
nice of him to to do that. But it's just, I feel like that definitely sets the tone for the book, for the rest of the book.
Hmm.
The kind of dark undertones of death is kind of constantly following them around. So, but you know, and it's also like unfathomable to me that he would just cheat on his bedridden wife who was a floor above them. Like they're just going at it, you know.
Yeah, because also, how hot is she? Like, I'm just confused.
I know, you know, and especially when I read the bonus chapter, which like we'll talk about that too.
Hmm.
Especially after reading the bonus chapter, I always kind of felt like he just had a little bit of evil inside of him.
Yes, like okay. So when I reread it also because of the bonus chapter, but the first time I read it was more recent. It was in July, and I like flew through it. I read it in like 3.5 hours. Like literally, I was just like, I cannot stop reading this. So the second time I read it slower, I was like trying to
Hmm.
figure out, because like knowing the ending, trying to figure out where all of the pieces were coming from. And like as I'm reading, I'm like, I cannot figure out, like he's so sus, but not as openly sus as Verity. So you're
Hmm.
like, is he really, or is it just like in comparison? Like the first point where I was like, okay, there's something wrong with this man is when he was like, oh, Verity has never read any of your books. I'm the reason that we hired you because like I loved your books. I'm like, are we supposed to believe that he actually read and loved her books? Because she even said she's not a good writer. So,
Well, I don't know because if you remember, like in the manuscript chapters, Verity would always talk about how, I guess, jealous she was that he was always reading other women's thrillers books.
oh yes, and he wouldn't read her books. He like refused.
Yeah, yeah. So I can believe that he did read Lowen's books.
Okay, that
So,
makes
which is
sense.
also is a weird, not like a weird thing, but he won't read. Well, Verity didn't want him to read her books.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. She definitely was like conflicted on that because she was offended that he didn't read them, but then she didn't want him to read them because she didn't even want him to read the first one, but that was also before she knew that she was going to be successful.
Yeah, and then like you remember, like he basically like steals it and locks himself in the
Yeah.
bathroom and reads it. And he's like, Verity, like this is amazing, like this is so good.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But he was also still reading other women's novels.
Yeah.
And I think, judging from the tone of the manuscript, whether it's real or not, you could tell that Verity had some kind of like almost resentment about it. So
Yeah.
I could understand, or I could believe that he did read Lowen's novels.
Yeah, and then he
And
does say the reason that he didn't read Verity's is because like he was terrified to be inside of her mind. Like because her books were written from the villain's perspective and he like couldn't rationalize that person with his wife. So like I definitely get that because bitch was crazy, obviously.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I would actually love to read her novels if they were real. I think
I
I think the
know.
villain's perspective is cool. Like I used to love that show Dexter.
Hmm.
You're
And
supposed to like
the whole fact of how each book was like a different, focused on a different what was it, not like the
the Seven Sins,
yes, yes,
basically,
yes,
right?
yeah, so
Yeah,
like lust, gluttony, whatever, like that
yeah,
sounds like a
Wrath.
really cool concept.
Yeah, and I feel like that could be a real thing.
Yes,
So
yes.
I think that's really great. And then I felt like the discovery of Verity's manuscript definitely sent Jeremy over the edge and was the factor in his decisions from there on out. Because obviously, as you get towards the end of the book, you discover that he had read the manuscript already. Lowen didn't know that, but Jeremy had already found it and read it.
do
And
we
he,
do we know that for 100% certainty, or was that just what she said in the letter?
that's just what she said in the letter, but that's what caused him to basically try to murder her.
That wasn't his
Because,
reread that made him want to murder her. That's where I was like,
no,
I was unsure because she also made a comment, Lowen made a comment about how fast he read the manuscript, which would insinuate that he did already read it. But then I was like, oh, but maybe he just suspected all of that stuff and like skipped all of the graphic sexual stuff that he already remembered and just skipped to the child's deaths parts.
Yeah, because from what I grasped in her letter, Jeremy had discovered the manuscript. He wasn't supposed to because, as Verity says in the letter, the manuscript was fake or it
Hmm.
was an embellishment.
Hmm.
She was trying to get herself in the mindset to write a book from a villain's perspective. So she took experiences from her own life and embellished them in a way that made them more negative and more harsh.
Yeah, like flipped
And
them
so,
basically.
yeah, so Jeremy discovered the manuscript accidentally and he thought it was real. And that was when he like drove her car into a tree. And that's what basically paralyzed Verity or made her brain go mush. So I can see like why when Lowen gives it to him, he kind of skims it because he already knows everything. Because Lowen found a copy that they thought was gone.
Hmm.
Jeremy had destroyed all the copies of the manuscript, except
Hmm.
for the physical one that Lowen finds.
And he had been looking for it because Verity says that in the letter, like, I know you were trying to
Yeah,
find because you didn't know that I had a printed out version or something like that.
yeah, basically. So I think that the manuscript, obviously, he's had all this tragedy, and I think reading the manuscript is what kind of flicked that switch in him that made him become this evil guy in the
Yeah.
book.
I think we need to get back to him when we get to our team manuscript team letter because I have more thoughts, but I think they're dependent on the team.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So Verity's character was a doozy, obviously.
Whew.
You know, it's very like I can't even describe it to be honest, because I think the only way to describe her is to talk about the famous debate of which version of her was the real one.
Hmm.
Like was she team manuscript? Was she team letter? Do you have any thoughts on her before we get into that, or do you want
Well,
to discuss it with the?
exactly like you said, it would make her two completely different people. Like if she is letter Verity, then she is just a normal gal who likes having sex with her hot husband, who experienced a lot of tragedy, didn't necessarily want to be a mother, but once she did, she embraced it and blah blah blah. But then if you look at manuscript Verity, you're like, wow, she's depraved and twisted and needs mental health help.
Yeah, because in my opinion, there's no way you can't be a little screwed in the head and write that manuscript.
Yes, 100% agree. And also the books, because she says, "Oh, I had to write the manuscript to get in the mindset for the books." I don't think you can necessarily write as amazing as they were saying that the books were, like these are best-selling books. This is like highly anticipated. These the last three in the series, but they're like extremely dark, written from the villain's point of view. I feel like you have to be in some type of headspace to write those kind of books and not just the headspace that you get into by writing a fake manuscript.
No, and I agree with that. I think that there's mystery in what is real and what is fake in
Hmm.
both the manuscript and the team letter, and I think that there's a little bit of truth in both of them.
That,
So
yes, yeah,
I think that both are Verity. I think that but they're just both twisted and manipulated in the ways that she wants them to be. Like she wants the letter to read as this person who isn't evil, but when you read the manuscript, it's hard not to feel like she is a little bit of evil.
yeah,
Because how can you write about your children like that? How can you write about wanting to suffocate your one daughter because she's not as good as the other one?
yeah. And
You know?
literally talking about murdering your children because then you would get your husband's attention back. Like it's
Which
true evil.
that blows my mind. But like, I get it in a sense. She wants this version of Jeremy that she had when she first had him.
Right.
And now they have two daughters, and so he loves her a little less because once you create something that you made with a person you love,
Hmm.
some of your love transfers to this new thing that you've made.
And he said
So,
it's unconditional love. Like they have
yeah,
conditional love. And Verity's like, no, girl, our love is unconditional. And he's like, no, it's not. Like,
yeah,
but the love you have for your kid is unconditional, especially when they're just born. They haven't done anything yet that could. piss you off.
Yeah, and I think that, Verity didn't really connect with Harper like Jeremy did. And so there's also that feeling of jealousy, I think,
Hmm.
in there. And, you know, it's wild and it's
Yeah.
common. Like we love true crime. We listen to true crime podcasts. We have a true crime book club.
Hmm.
So you read these stories about women that go psycho and kill their children,
Absolutely.
or, men do it too. So it's believable as you read the book. It's fucked up, but it's believable.
Yeah. And the fact that they added in that extra layer of Harper being on the spectrum
Yeah.
where Jeremy actually cared about being a parent. So he was like, I'm going to do everything I can to communicate with her and to help her and to figure out like why she communicates differently. Whereas Verity was like, oh, she's not perfect. This is ruining our perfect life. And then can we even get started on how she gets pregnant again just because she's like, oh my God, remember how much he loved me when I was carrying his child?
Oh my God, I know that was
What?
when you read that in the manuscript when she's like, "Oh, I'm pregnant," but she's not actually pregnant.
Yes.
And this girl is like, now I need to work double time to get pregnant."
But so that's what I was waiting for when I first read it. I'm like, okay, so we're reading the manuscript part where she literally hates being a mother. She doesn't want these two children. She tried to kill one of them. And then I'm like, okay, so how does it come that she gets pregnant again?
Hmm.
And then they get to it because she just wanted Jeremy to love her again.
Which, like, that's obviously so unhealthy and so toxic.
And the way that she talks about, like you said, how could a mother, even if it was fake, write about killing their child, write about trying to perform an abortion on themselves? And then, oh, all I did was leave her with a scratch on her face. I guess I'm not that good at it. Like, what?
Like, again, the themes in this book get dark. They get
It's
dark and they
it's
get heavy.
it's way darker than you would ever imagine going into it.
But I feel like that is Colleen Hoover's MO. I think she likes to have that dark, because which we will eventually be doing an episode on. It Ends With Us.
Hmm.
There were some dark themes in that book too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about. Like that's not what people expect. But she kind of brings it in seamlessly. And I'm not saying there's no issues with the plot of this book. There obviously is. But she brings it in so seamlessly that it's not just like throwing in a twist for the sake of throwing in a twist.
No, and I agree with that. And I think that's a reason why I like her books, is because she's also putting in real life situations that are relatable
Hmm.
and could happen. Whereas, like, her books aren't all, rainbows and butterflies. Like,
Hmm.
there's some tragedy there, there's some conflict, and that's real life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And that's my issue with some romance books is that they are so unrealistic. So I like
yeah.
how hers has sometimes those dark elements to balance it out.
Hmm. I agree with that. But so, you know, so when I first read Verity, like, book talk wasn't a thing yet.
Mhm.
The team manuscript team letter wasn't a thing yet. So when I was seeing all these videos about it, I was like, what are they talking about? Because it had been 2 years since I read the book, and I was like, I don't get what's happening. And so I reread it, and I was like, oh, I was like, I get it now. I was like, which team are you on? Like, which do you think is the believable one? And
Hmm.
like I said, I think there's truth in both, and I think they're both a little bit hurt. I don't, but I think that it's hard to ignore the audacity that she has in Team Manuscript. It's hard to ignore those truth bombs, whether real or fake, and
Hmm.
not feel like there's no way you can write this and not actually be thinking this in some way or form.
And not destroy it. Like you left a copy around for what? For a bit of light
Yeah.
reading?
Like, it's kind of like it should be one of those burn after reading things. It's like,
Exactly.
write all your terrible thoughts down and
And
burn
then
that shit.
delete, 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 and
Yeah.
write the book. See, I feel like I'm 100% manuscript
Yeah, that's fair.
because that's why I was talking about like with the whole Jeremy thing. We only know that he read the manuscript previously and that he drove the car because of the letter. So if you don't believe the letter at all, then maybe he didn't do those things, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So she could be doing that to cover her ass, which, like, not saying I don't believe that Jeremy drove the car into a tree, but if I had found out that my wife killed our two kids and then like wrote all about it, I feel like I would be more successful in killing my wife. I'm just saying. And then also the fact that Verity wrote the letter after she knew that Lowen had the manuscript, because she says in the letter, like, "Oh, I know that your little girlfriend found the manuscript and she's reading it."
Yeah.
And then my last point is the whole thing with Harper and crew in the boat,
Yeah.
because Verity admits to telling Crew to hold his breath, and she says she tells Jeremy, "Oh, because I knew that Harper could swim." And she says in the letter, "Because I knew that Harper could swim." But they both say at other times in the book that Crew and Verity both knew that Harper couldn't swim.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? So like she tried to cover herself by being
Mm-hmm.
like, "No, no, no, I knew that Harper would be safe because she knew how to swim." But to me, it makes more sense what happens in the manuscript, especially the way that Jeremy confronted her about it
Yeah,
and
I can
said like,
understand that.
"Why'd you tell Crew to hold his breath?" or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Which, so let's get into this bonus chapter because I have some thoughts about Crew.
Yes, please, please share. Please, let's get
This
into it.
kid is 100%, and we shouldn't be surprised, judging from the family he came from and the psychotic things that they've done. But he's a future psychopath. Crew
Yes,
is 100% gonna be the next Ted Bundy. Like, he
yes.
is just gonna kill some people.
I mean, can you blame him? No.
No.
And the extra chapter is basically just proof that being in this family makes you lose your damn mind.
Absolutely.
Because Lowen is slowly losing her mind. Actually, not slowly, pretty quickly losing her mind. And like trying to get into Lowen's head, and I mean, trying to get into Verity's head, and like always comparing herself and all this stuff. So she's slowly losing her mind. Crew, the boy needs therapy. When Jeremy asked Lowen, "Should I take him back to therapy?" I'm screaming at the book, "Yes, yes, 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 yes." He needs it.
Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, the evil that's in Jeremy just continues in this chapter.
Mhm.
Like, he kills somebody else again, just to try to, like, protect their family. And it's like, Lowen needs to take this new baby, which, by the way, of course she gets pregnant
Of
with
course,
another baby.
of course,
Because we need more mess in this
yes,
book. She needs to take this baby and get the fuck out. She needs to run.
literally.
She needs to run. Because if Jeremy doesn't kill her, Crew's gonna kill her.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay?
But also, I still do not understand why he killed this woman. Like, I get why he rationalized it, but did they think they were going to keep their relationship a
I,
secret forever? They literally
exactly.
thought they were never going to be seen in public together. He has gone through all this tragedy. She's the face of, well, not the face of, because she's like saying that she's not, going to do any public, whatever, speaking stuff. But she's an author. Like, you guys are not, you're living in spotlight type lives. And then they're just pretending like they're going to be able to keep this secret forever. Why would it be that surprising for Verity to die in her sleep with the condition that everyone believed that she had?
Because it's the fear of judgment that the two of them had started an affair while Verity was dying. And it's like, girl, get over it. Like,
Yeah,
people do this
because
shit on the
you did
daily.
it. Also, you deserve the judgment because you did it.
Yeah, like clearly they both have these guilty consciences, and, it's understandable. I get it. But did it need to, did this woman's life need to end just
Yeah.
because you guys feel shitty about the affair that you had and now there's a baby? Listen, this stuff happens every day. People cheat on people, people get
Hmm.
pregnant not supposed to. So like it is what it is.
Yes.
You just gotta live with it. You made
But
a mistake,
they
whatever.
made it the rationalization of, if someone sees us together, they're going to look into Verity's death. When
Which is not gonna
really,
happen.
exactly, exactly. When really the real reason is exactly what you just said. They don't want to be judged and look like they were having an affair when Verity was bedridden and, couldn't even feed herself applesauce.
And I
But
just
it was just, I mean, I think we can both agree the extra chapter didn't do much for me.
but wait, because the part of the bonus chapter that really, really got to me and proves to me even more that Jeremy is a psycho.
Oh God.
And like I'm obviously we know this, I'm recently pregnant. I'm
Hmm.
just pregnant with my first child. And if my husband ever asked to do this, I would immediately ask for a divorce. He's like, can I drink the breast milk? And I'm like,
Bruh.
why? 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 And he just literally is like, let me just suckle. Like, let me just get in there.
Stop it.
And I'm like,
Don't do sound
no,
effects.
no. I'm like, please don't do that. And I'm like, no, this guy's so psycho.
See,
He's
okay,
so screwed in
that
the
is
head.
where this chapter kind of started to ruin the book for me. Like it turned
Yeah.
into a weird romance book. Because
Yeah.
like you know that would happen in some weird ass dark spicy like I'm just gonna suckle at your breasts and then we're gonna have sex out like no 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 thank
Yeah.
you. And she was like all about it. Like
Which, like, and again, I feel like I actually almost, as we're discussing this, maybe these two are meant for each other. Because Lowen is all about Jeremy and his fucked up tendencies.
yes, but she is obviously too vanilla for him, and she's
Hmm.
very self-conscious about it. And she's like, I just don't know why we're not having sex where I need to bite down on the headboard. And he's like, she's like, we're making love, and it's just not enough. And I'm like, girl,
I
she
know.
does not want a normal relationship. She's like, Jeremy cannot handle a normal relationship because he is twisted as hell, which is true.
Yeah, it is. So, anyways, that's Verity by Colleen Hoover. That's what that book is.
That's
I
what
mean,
that
it was
is.
good. It was good. I'm not gonna. We can. The book was good. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Mhm.
The first time I read it, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I reread it and I was like, you know what? I gotta bump this up to a 4
Mhm.
because while it was messy, I think it's the manuscript that really got me. That was my favorite part of the entire book was the manuscript because call me what I am, but I like dark books. I like
Mhm.
to read dark books. Like I like dark romance. We like thrillers. I like to read about, murder and all this. So reading something that dark from someone's perspective I liked it. I enjoyed it. And I think that's why I end up bumping up my rating because I think that it was good. I think that the manuscript really stole the show for me in this book.
I completely agree. I also am giving it a 4, but without the bonus chapter. We're pretending the
Oh my
bonus
god,
chapter
no.
doesn't
We're
exist.
gonna yeah, that's just
Yeah,
erasing it from my memory.
we're giving original version a 4. And I mean, I found it very creepy. Like I obviously the psychological thriller part is what I'm there for. Same as you.
Hmm.
Like I that's one of my favorite genres. But just the image of them like hooking up and looking up at the top of the stairs and Verity is just standing there, like I got the chillies. I was like,
Oh, I know.
this is creepy. And then I also love how it wasn't just a normal twist like you get in most thrillers, but it actually made you doubt everything that you had read, and it sparks this huge debate. Like you said,
Hmm.
now that it has, blown up on TikTok, everyone is talking about team letter versus team manuscript. Like the fact that a book that may not be a five-star book, best book ever written, can create all of this discussion and all of this like back and forth about it is actually really impressive. And I just like her way of writing. This was my first book by her. I like that she doesn't try to use like obscure words or spend a whole chapter describing something. Like she's straight to the point, and her books are fast paced and just like jam packed with character development, which is what I personally prefer when I'm reading thrillers.
Yeah, I agree. I think it really speaks to her talent as an author and her writing style.
Hmm.
So it was also my first Colleen Hoover book, which is like not weird, but then you read her other books, you're like, oh, like this was literally like just like a shot in the dark for her.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it worked out for her in
She
the
did
long
it.
run.
Yeah.
She blew up, became this sensation, and Verity definitely was a big reason for that.
Hmm.
So sometimes you just got to take the shot.
And now people who are mostly into thrillers are reading her other books and are getting into a different genre that they necessarily wouldn't have before, me included. I mean, I always liked romance books, but I would never choose one over a thriller. But I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm going to read anything that Colleen Hoover writes because I do like her way of writing.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think for me, you know, for you, it was book talk. For
Hmm.
me, it was Bookstagram.
Hmm.
We find these new communities, and it just really opens up your eyes to all
Yeah.
this other stuff that's out there. Because we were in a book club. Well, we are in a book club, but our book club is heavily focused on true crime, thrillers, mysteries. And so that was all I read for years.
Hmm.
For the last couple of years, I never really went outside the box. And now that I've joined Bookstagram, I'm reading everything. I'm reading historical fiction, I'm reading fantasy, I'm reading romance, I'm reading, YA novels again. So it's great to like, open up my mind to all the stuff that's out there because God, there's so many good books. It's overwhelming.
It's so overwhelming. And I almost wish that that didn't happen, that I
I know.
wasn't interested in all these different genres. Because recently I've been doing the same thing. Like, I've been getting so much more into horror books because I'm like, I'm obsessed with horror movies. Why am I not reading horror books? And
Yeah.
then Book Talk has just given me, oh, I don't know, 100 extra books to add to my Goodreads. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
this is awful.
I know. It's wild, but I love it, and I
Yeah.
love that books are kind of having this fantastic comeback
Yeah.
because it's it's great. It's great. Reading is great, and if my kid doesn't like to read, there's going to be a problem.
Agreed.
All right, so there's no movie or TV show for Verity, but if there were, we're going to cast Lowen, we're going to cast Jeremy, we're going to cast Verity. So, Lowen, for me, I think Elle Fanning would be a good choice for her.
Oh, okay. That never
Yeah.
even.
Not like the great in the show The Great Elle Fanning, because she's a bomb ass bitch in that show,
Hmm.
but more like the meek, kind of like Maleficent when she was the princess in that movie. You know what I mean? The meek,
Yeah.
kind of like timid character.
And she was in that docu-series about Michelle Carter,
Yes,
which I'm kind of picturing that because she was super weird and twisted in that, but
there you
also
go. I
naive.
actually haven't watched that yet, but I completely understand that.
Wow, that's a good one. And not one that I
Hmm.
saw, because obviously everyone has an opinion on who should be
Yeah.
cast in this. I went with Dakota Johnson from
Okay, that's a
50
good one too.
Shades because she has that whole look of just like confusion sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, just
Yeah.
like, oh, I can't believe I got myself into this situation. And and she's just so good at that.
Yeah, actually, I agree with that. And that's actually funny you say that because my Jeremy is Jamie Dornan from Fifty Shades of Grey.
Okay. Okay. See, I think he would definitely be a good fit for that. I said Richard Madden, who's
Oh my God,
Rob
I love
Stark.
him. Yeah,
The only thing is I don't feel like, and this is me sounding bitchy, like he's not tall enough, but they kind of made it seem like Jeremy was hot, but not that hot. Like he
yeah,
wasn't
I can see
like,
that.
yeah. So I'm like, I could see how Richard Madden and Jamie Dornan kind of are like, they're hot because they have the money and the resources to look really hot. But if
Yeah,
you
and I feel
saw them
like
on the street, you'd just be like, oh, they're attractive, whatever.
I can see Jamie Dornan being a character that could snap at any second.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I could see that too. He does have something dark behind the eyes.
Yeah. Verity, I went with Evan Rachel Wood.
That is an
I know you do.
obscure pick. I like that a
I
lot.
think, I watch Westworld. I love Westworld. And the character that she plays on Westworld kind of has these Verity vibes because,
Hmm.
the character in that TV show is she starts off, she has multiple personalities. And I think that Verity has multiple personalities.
Oh, absolutely. Wow, that yeah, that's a good one.
And True Blood, you think of her in True Blood. She's
Hmm.
plays this queen. So I think she has the ability to play these characters that need to be timid when they need to be, but are
Hmm.
fierce when they have to be.
Yeah, she could definitely play either side of that. Like
Yeah.
just the normal mom or like the absolutely crazy something is stirring beneath her.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I picked Victoria Pedretti from You
Oh, that's a good choice too.
because she also knows how to play
I
a crazy
know.
character.
She's honestly becoming one of my favorite actresses.
Oh my
Like I loved
gosh.
her in the Haunting series, both of
Yes,
them.
yes.
She's fantastic in You. So, and I think she's up and coming, and I hope that
Hmm.
she just is successful because
She
she's a
has a
great
lot
actress.
of range, and that's why I feel like she
Yeah.
would be really good for this too. Because I could see her as like the loving mom, but then I could also see her killing a child. You know what I mean?
Oh, if you watched You, she could definitely kill a child,
Yes, exactly.
which is
Exactly.
terrible to say. I'm so sorry. But oh man, I would watch both. I would watch both versions of that.
Hmm.
I
Absolutely.
really would. Those are great choices.
It's
I like that.
so, I wonder how they ever would make, because like I feel like this would be a perfect thing to make into a movie because it's so
Yeah.
popular. But how do you do all of that without just showing someone sitting and reading a manuscript and then finding the letter? It would be tricky.
It would probably, I would assume, be like someone narrating the manuscript and the manuscript is being acted out,
Yeah, yeah.
you
With
know?
like, I don't know. I think it would be, I mean, obviously, I would love to see that happen. But
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So we haven't thought of a cool send off yet. We'll get there. It'll be something cool and quirky about, whatever. I can't even think of anything right now. But eventually we'll get there. We hope you guys enjoyed this first episode. We have many more to come. Our next one is going to be another thriller book. We won't tell you what it is yet. If you want to find out, you can follow us on Instagram at Fully Booked Calf Pod, CAFFPOD. And there we'll be posting about future episodes. We're eventually going to post some bonus content. We're just starting out here. So, but we have lots of ideas and things we want to talk about. Obviously, like, subscribe, and download our episodes on Spotify. Eventually, we're going to try to upload to more platforms. Like I said, this is our first go around, but we're hoping it's going to be fun. I really enjoy doing this.
yeah, and we hope that you all enjoyed listening and that you will continue to discuss with us because we could talk about books all day, every day.
Absolutely. If you've seen my TBR cart, I could do a million episodes because it's overwhelming.
Exactly.
All right,
Exactly.
guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you next time.
Bye.